Hi, and welcome to my course, Learn How to Program. This is part 2, and today we are going to be talking about ifs, booleans, and control flow. So what is control flow exactly? Well, it's guiding your program down different paths depending on the situation. So in order to do this, we are going to need to add a new data type to our arsenal. This new data type is going to be called Boolean. And Boolean has two values, true and false. So let's add it to our arsenal here. As you can see from before, we have string, like today is a sunny day, or int, like 5, or char, like C, and now we have Boolean, which again can be true or false. So what's Boolean actually for? Well, it's helpful to decide whether something should be done or not. Let me give you a practical example so this starts to make a little bit of sense. So let's say that the question is it raining outside? Well, this either has a yes or a no answer. If it's yes, then the value will be true. If it is no, then the value will be false. So as you can see, we are already guiding our program. This already is control flow. It's guiding your program, telling it where to go. If it's raining outside, then true. If it's not, then false. Well, so what does this actually look like in the code? Well, let's say that we declare a variable. Remember that from our last lesson. A variable with val space, is it raining? And then we give it the value of true. Notice here that we are not wrapping this in quotes like a string. That's because it's not a string, it's a Boolean. Well, if we were to then print this out with print line, so print line, parentheses, is it raining? The value we will get in the console is true. And we are actually going to go through some examples later on, so you will see this in action very soon. However, this by itself is not very interesting. So let's try to make this a little bit more interesting by giving a practical example of how you can use control flow and Booleans to guide your program to make decisions. The analogy is, what do you want the delivery company to do if you're not home? Well, this is what the previous developer has left us with. The situation is I'm home, and the result of the program is the package is delivered. Now let's say that I'm not home. Well, then the result of the program is back to the warehouse, which is actually not ideal. What we would like to do in the future is when we are not home, we want the package delivery guy to follow, or girl, to follow a set of instructions so that the package can be delivered to a neighbor or maybe go somewhere else or maybe in the back of the house. But this is what the previous programmer left with, and we're going to make this better. But now let's kind of analyze what this would look like code-wise. So again, show me the code. This is what control flow and if-else statements look like in Kotlin. So as you can see right here, there is a variable called isCustomerHome, and that variable actually holds a Boolean. When that variable is true, so isCustomerHome equal true, then we print out deliver package. When it is false, then we print out back to the warehouse. So it all depends kind of on what the value of this variable is. Notice that it's implied that we already declared this variable. If you were to put this into our program or into that console that we've been using the last couple of videos, then you will notice that this will actually not compile, aka this will actually not work unless you do something like val space isCustomerHome equals true or equals false. So let's go back to this example. As you just noticed, we turned that I'm home situation and I'm not home situation into a variable, which can be true or false. But now let's kind of separate this out a little bit in our minds. So in a situation where I'm not home, we want to leave instructions, and then we want the package delivery guy or girl to follow these instructions. And then if I have not left instructions, we want them to actually go back to the warehouse. So we need to take this from things that we've written out in the English language to actual code. As you can see here, This is another case where we can turn English or something written out into code very easily, because you have either left instructions or you have not left instructions, true or false. So we can turn this I've left instructions into a variable. If you have not left instructions, then we want to go back to the warehouse. So again, from top to bottom, the situation is I'm home, package delivered. But let's say that I'm not home. Okay, then I've left instructions. Okay, follow the instructions. But let's say I'm not home and I have not left instructions. Well, then you get what we have at the very bottom, back to the warehouse. So you know all of this from logic, but what we need to do and what we're trying to accomplish is to turn your English sentences and your logic into something that the computer can easily understand. So again, show me the code. Well, now this is a little bit more complicated, so what I would suggest that you do is just for a second, pause the video, read this through, and then come back to it. Okay, so from top to bottom. If customer is home, then we print deliver the package. All right, great. Else if has customer left instructions, then we follow those instructions by just printing out print line follow instructions. So what's going on here is if that first branch, the if branch with is customer home, is false, it's going to go on to this next branch, this else if. And then you can feed it yet another variable that we have created. So again, this would actually not compile. This would actually not work in real life if you had not declared is customer home and has customer left instructions previously. But if you have, then when you evaluate else if has customer left instructions, if that variable is true, then it will print out, you guessed it, follow instructions. If it is false, then we go to the else case, bummer, back to warehouse. Here's another way of looking at pretty much the exact same thing. This is called a decision tree. I really like this way of doing it. I think it's super clear. I hope it's also clear to you. So what should the delivery man do? Okay, is the customer home? We have turned into a variable called is customer home. If yes, then we deliver. If no, then we go to the else if, which is this next branch and leaf down here, the one with has customer left instructions. If it is true that they have left instructions, then the delivery man or woman is supposed to follow the instructions. If it is false, then they go back to the warehouse. So once again, show me the code. This is just like the decision tree that we just saw, but now we have put this in a way that the computer can actually understand. This is Kotlin. So once again, if the customer is home, we deliver the package. Oh, bummer, the customer is not home. Okay, well, else if customer left instructions, which is a true or false thing. If it's true, follow instructions. If it's false, go to the very last branch. What I mean by branch is, as you can see here, we have kind of these three sections, the three different print line statements. And when I say branch, that's actually what I'm referring to. So if those two variables up there are both false, it evaluates to the very last thing, and then it says bummer, back to warehouse. So now what I would like you guys to do is I have actually created a GitHub page where you can see all of the exercises before we work on them. So these will be the blank exercises. GitHub is a place where you can push code up to. So basically save code into things that are called repositories, which is kind of just a fancy way of saying kind of like a folder for programmers. Is very, very widely used. If you continue on with programming, you are going to use GitHub all of the time to discover new code, to save your code, to deploy your code. A lot of that might sound kind of alien to you right now, but just know that if you go to this website right here, then you will be able to see our blank exercises. We will then copy and paste those exercises into our console, into that play.kotlinlang.org website that we've been working off of the last couple of videos. And we will work through these things together and come up with the solutions, and I will explain everything step by step. So, okay, let's actually go to that website. So here's the website, and as you can see, we are at the group for Anybody Can Program. This is the repository, how to program. Repository is just another kind of word for a folder or a project. Actually, project is probably the best word for this. And now we are going to go into the blank exercises. We click on blank exercises, and you actually have two options here. So you can either copy and paste this full thing all the way to the bottom to right here, or you can copy and paste this link, which I think is easier. It's just a little bit tricky because you have to copy the whole thing, and this is very long. But let's copy it and see if we can get this to work. Excellent. Here's all the stuff that we want to work from. Okay, so let's start with part 1, the basics. So in part 1, section 1 of part 1, we are going to create a simple Boolean variable named is it raining, set it to true, and then print it out. So you just saw this stuff in the slides, but now we are going to repeat this so that it sticks to your head. So remember, declaring a variable is val space, and now we wanted to call this variable is it raining. Excellent. And now it said here that we want to assign this the value of true. Okay, that's all you need to do. So like I said earlier, this true does not need to be wrapped into quotes. If you wrap this into quotes, this will actually become a string. So our program won't work. It needs to be true so that we can use it in our control flow, so that we can use it in our if, else statements. All right, so now let's print out this beautiful variable. Is it raining? Excellent. Now let's click play and just pray that this works. Excellent. I've just been having issues with this whole setup, and I'm glad that it's working now. Okay, awesome. Val, is it raining? True. We print it out. Look, true. Excellent. So here's kind of the next part of this. Let's create another Boolean variable named is today Christmas, but this time we want it to be false. Print it out when you are done. All right, well, sounds easy enough. We are experts at creating variables by now, and I think we understand what we need to do. So val is it Christmas, and let's set it to probably false unless you are watching this on Christmas Day. Now we are going to print this out. Print line is it Christmas. All right, great job so far, guys. Let's click play. Awesome, look at that. The first one is true from the is it raining, and the second one is false. That is exactly what we wanted to do. All right, so welcome to part 2 right now. If you need a break, I would advise you to take one now. Back to part 2. This is what the previous programmer left us. This is the case that is not quite ideal, and because of this programmer, all of our packages, when we are not home, go back to the warehouse, which is a big bummer. So we are actually going to fix this. So what he left behind is a val, a variable called isCustomerHome, and it's equal to true. So if isCustomerHome is true, print out deliver package. Else, back to warehouse. So let's see if we understand how this works. If this variable evaluates to true, deliver package, false, back to the warehouse. So currently it says deliver package. So what must have happened is that when we got to this if statement, this is customer home evaluated to true, which we know is true. Take a look at that. So if we change this to false, what do we expect to happen? We expect back to warehouse to be printed out. Look at that, back to the warehouse. And that was actually part 1 or section 1 of part 2. So good job. All right, so the next section is create a new variable right below is customer home named has customer left instructions. Set this new variable to true. Add this variable to our decision tree. Tell the program to print follow instructions when the program enters this branch. All right, so let's follow this kind of step by step. Don't worry, we are going to do all of this together, and I seriously advise you to pause the video when you are confused. Okay, so let's create this new variable. So we are going to copy and paste this. Excellent. Val has customer left instructions, and we are going to set this to true. Okay, very cool. Now it says add this variable to our decision tree. Okay, so what we saw before is if we want to do that, then we just need to add another if to our control flow right here. And since we already have one if up here, then we need to add an else if. So if you're the very first one, so if you're the very first variable or thing being evaluated, you start with if. If you need to evaluate something else, like another variable, then you create another if here with this else in front of it. Okay? So that would be has customer left instructions. All right. Excellent. And now the next part of this is tell the program to print follow instructions. Okay, cool. Let's do that. Follow instructions. So let's go over what we did one more time. I just want this to be super crystal clear. So what we did is we created this variable. We called it has customer left instructions, and we set it equal to true. So what we expect to happen here from top to bottom is first we evaluate this if. This is the very top. If is customer home, then deliver the package. Okay, but in this case, that's false. So instead of it printing out deliver package, you are guiding it to this next branch right here. Else if has customer left instructions, which we know to be true. So if it's true, then we actually execute this block of code, the one that says print line follow instructions. So when we run this, we should expect to see follow instructions come out. Look at that, follow instructions. That's exactly what we wanted to see. So now it says set both variables to false and then rerun. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder why it wants us to do that. So before we do anything else, I would encourage you to pause the video and to think through what's going to happen when both of these variables are false. When you're ready, please unpause. So this is what happens. Val is customer home is false. Val has customer left instructions is also false. So from top to bottom, if is customer home, which is false. Okay, so now we do not go into deliver package because this thing evaluates to false. We go to the next branch. Else if has customer left instructions is also false, meaning we cannot execute this follow instruction. Then we actually go to, oh, wait, look at that. We actually have nothing. So what we expect to happen is absolutely nothing. And as you can see, nothing happened. There was no message printed. Very interesting. So how can we actually fix this? Well, we need to add an else case where the branch prints out back to warehouse. So here's the thing. When this branch evaluates to false and this other branch evaluates to false, we need to have kind of our last resort, our backup option. And for our backup option, we actually want the package to go back to the warehouse. Otherwise, nothing's going to get done. So look at that. So now when we rerun this, like I said, sometimes this is buggy and it takes longer than it should. Back to warehouse was printed out. That is exactly what we wanted to see. Really good job. So if is customer home, that turns out to be false. It evaluates to false. Next branch, else if has customer left instruction. That also turns out to be false. False, false. Okay, the only thing left to do, this else right here, is to go back to the warehouse. And now we've made this program a lot better because now when we are not home, then the delivery guy or girl is going to follow our instructions and deliver it to your really nice neighbor that lives next door. All right, so now what I want you to do is to change the variables from true to false and vice versa. Experiment to see where the program goes. All right, so what we could do, for example, is let's say that this is true. Okay. So actually, what do we expect to happen? Well, if is customer home evaluates to true, then we print out this. So deliver package will be printed out, and then nothing else here is going to happen. So let's click play, and let's pray that it takes less than 10 years to evaluate. All right, awesome, deliver package. Okay, so then let's say that I set this equal to false, and then I set this equal to true. I want you to pause the video and think about what's going to happen. Well, what ends up happening is that the customer is not home, but I have left instructions, so the instructions are followed. Awesome. But now let's say that the customer is not home and that the customer has not left instructions. Boo. So what happens is customer home? False. Has customer left instructions? False. And then we go back to our fallback, back to warehouse. Boo. Okay. Well, congratulations. Really good job. That was a lot to go through. I would highly encourage you to maybe take a break, 5 to 10 minute break, maybe get some coffee, come back here, and then we will summarize everything that we did together. So to summarize, Booleans allow you to store variables that are true or false. If statements allow you to control where a program is going, like all those branches that we saw, all of those if, else if, and else's. And by combining if, else if, and else, it allows you to create more complex decision trees. So here's some homework that I want you guys to work on, and this is also in the video notes. Think of some other situations and try to create an if, else relationship out of it. This could be, for example, has job interview or has pet. Just try to come up with some silly, kind of funny scenarios where you want to see how control flow actually works, just stuff that will really stick in your head. What I also want you guys to do is to explain why the order of your control flow matters. So what I mean by that is, if you remembered, how it works is with that first if statement, you are putting in a variable right there, but you can actually swap the variables. So if you were, for example, to put a different variable there, so like if has customer left instructions, that would actually be the first thing to be executed, which is actually the wrong order. You don't want the first thing that the delivery guy checks is to be has the customer left instructions. You want the first thing that they check is customer home. So kind of explain yourself that and see if you can understand that and wrap your mind around that. And when you have, that's fantastic. Just try to explain why the order of your control flow matters and make sure that you understand why it matters. And if you have any questions, as always, you can always contact me. So here's some more practical advice. So my best advice for today is actually to take a break. Then come back to this video and run through everything, or at least parts of this video again. So with computer science, with programming, you are not going to learn how to do all of this stuff in one day. It takes a lot of practice, but I promise if you practice, all of this stuff will stick in your head. You know how to do this already. You know how logic works. You know how the English language works. So the trick is to transfer what you already know, what you are already capable of, to something that the computer can understand. And that is what programming is all about. Remember that anybody can program, so why not you? I am looking forward to seeing you guys next time on my next video. Take care. Bye.